Well, it's October the 26th today. We've had a long frost-free period, but it's time to put the gardens to bed. And it's really about removing a lot of growth that has built up over the season. There's always a lot of growth to remove, but more so this year. We've had a great growing season and lots of rain, and we're just starting in on some pots and things by the road. We're loading the stuff onto our farm wagon here, taking it back to our burning pile later, and just want to give you a little tour about what we're doing and how we do it and why we do it. We had our first major frost this morning. We've had smaller ones since, but this is the end of the growing season, certainly. And the bulk of our work now is mostly just getting rid of hosta bodies, I guess you could say. We have a lot of other pruning to do. These window boxes are going to need to be cleaned off. But the hostas represent a lot of biomass. You may remember over here was the main garden in front of the house. And it doesn't look quite as nice as it used to. But that's okay. The main thing now is that we just get rid of the old plants, because if we don't, then that's going to really interfere with the growth of the plants in the spring. So we're going to be working to make these nice and neat looking. We'll also replenish some of the mulch here so that everything's ready to go in the spring. And we've got a couple of tricks that we want to show you for removing all this material as efficiently as possible. You may remember this garden from a couple of videos earlier in the summer. This is the place where we seeded flowers directly into the garden using this seed mix here. We just prepared some soil and sprinkled it on and gave it a little bit of water. It's really turned out well. We're just about to clean this garden out now because these are annuals and we want to have this garden space fresh for next spring. But we've got a lot of growth here. This is all from that seed mix. And as you can see, it's actually probably one of the more pretty parts of the garden at the moment. You know, most everything else has been killed by frost. This seems to have survived pretty well, but now it's time to clean things up. We can probably just pull these out mostly. We have a technique where we use either clippers or a saw to remove garden material, and we'll be showing you more about that in the gardens closer to the house. But for now, we're just going to pull these things out and get them ready, get the bed ready for next spring. So, as I mentioned before, removing the hostas is a big part of what we're doing here, cleaning up the garden, and we used to do it. It's a two-person job, and we used to do it with these clippers here. So one person holds up the hostas, and the other kind of goes at the hostas as close to the ground as possible. And we did this for a number of years, but as you can see, there's a lot of stuff to cut through. And these clippers normally do a great job, but it's pretty slow. So this year we decided to try and use this saw here. This is an old pruning saw. It's still pretty sharp though. And so Mary still holds up the hostas, but they're quite easy to just saw right through. And we're finding it much faster, which is a good thing because we want to get this work done as quickly as we can. It's also quite easy just to go right down to ground level, so we get a nice clean result. We've already tackled some gardens on the other side of the driveway using this method. You saw the garden earlier, so why don't you go over and take a look now, see how clean it is. Just took a few minutes. As you can see, there aren't very many hostas here now. There's none at all, in fact. And it was just the work of a few minutes. But this is the way we want to see the garden when it comes through the winter time. And everything that's alive under there, all the perennials, will push their way up through the mulch, and they'll start growing again. Weed pressure is reduced, fertility is enhanced, and so is moisture holding capacity. Here you can see Mary removing some annuals from some of our planters. The soil around roots is the most fertile, so you don't want to lose that if you can help it. and if the roots are loose enough in the soil, you can just knock that great soil off and it goes back in for next year. These planters are kind of interesting. They're reinforced concrete. Now concrete usually is going to crack a lot in the winter, but these are strong enough that they survive. You've seen these hanging baskets before too in earlier videos from this summer. They've done really well. We've used the Scott's Miracle-Gro on them, and they've really put on the growth. And they still look pretty good too. They're a little bit touched by the frost, so we're going to take the opportunity and remove them. I want to show you a little trick for how to make that happen. Well, as I explained before, I'm going to be emptying these hanging baskets, and there's just a little thing I want to show you here. Normally, this hook, which connects all three of the chains, is closed, which means you have to empty the basket with the chains kind of in the way. But a simple thing that I've done is to just open up the hook so that you can take the chains off, and then you can move the chains aside, and then they don't get in the way when it comes time to emptying this great big hanging basket. Just a little thing, but it makes a difference. So this is the underside of the hanging basket, and this is a coir liner, and they last a couple of years, and then they get kind of thin and break, and so you need another one. To economize on that, whenever I have to add a new liner, like this one here was new this spring, I just simply add it over top of the old weak one, and that way you can get all the use possible out of the weak one before it completely disintegrates, and you just have to buy these things a lot less often. That saw method I was telling you about before for the hostas actually works really well for woodier things too. Mary is trimming back our ferns. These have been with us for a long time, and they've gotten very well established. Their stalks are quite woody at this time of the year, and you have to be careful, though, about how you trim them off. The ferns we've got here have a kind of crown growing. That's where the new growth will come from, so you don't want to cut into that. You want to cut higher than the crown and then just take off the woody material. So it kind of looks like a little turnip almost sitting there above the soil. But that's how you get them to survive. Well, I guess this officially marks the end of the 2015 gardening season. We've got all of the gardens trimmed out, all the trimmings taken away, and we're just ready for winter now. The only thing that we might do once the ground freezes is we'll bring in some more mulch here in areas where it's thin. We have found that the mulch does a terrific job. It really makes a big difference in the garden, fertility-wise and moisture-holding-wise. We've also emptied some of these pots here. You'll notice right here that there are two pots. One is empty and upside down, ready for next season, and the other is not. The white pot is ceramic, and it'll crack for sure as soil freezes in it. But this blue one, although it looks like ceramic, is actually a synthetic material, so we don't have to empty it. It just survives fine like this, and we're glad of it too, because it's quite a large pot, and it would be hard to handle otherwise. But anyway, come back next year. We'll show you what it's like to get the garden going in the spring, and how that progresses throughout the summer. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.